Welcome to Old New Borrow Blue, the Blue Room podcast that looks at the things we love about this thing of ours called Everton. Each episode, I speak to an Evertonian about the favourite former player, current player they'd have loved to have seen at Everton, and the favourite Evertonian or thing about Everton. Old New Borrow Blue. I'm joined this week by Jim Keoghan, top Everton Twitterer and author of some great Everton books, including Highs, Lows, and Bakayoko's Everton in the 90s, Everything You Wanted to Know About Everton But Were Afraid to Ask, and a new kids book. And if you know your history, a young Evertonian's guide to the Toffees. Jim, lovely to have you here. We'll pick up on those books in a sec, but when I was looking through some of the stuff you'd authored, I didn't realise you'd done non-Everton books. So punk football and post-punk football piqued my interest. Can you just talk us through them?
Yeah, so punk football is kind of a look at the kind of the supporter activist supporter ownership movement. So it looks at kind of how that developed in like I guess kind of the late 80s, starting with kind of anti-racism movements amongst fans, and it moved into kind of the first trust and kind of how that kind of blossomed. And then you move into like the clubs that are owned by the fans, like Wimbledon, FC United Manchester, stuff like that. And they looked at kind of how it works in different countries too. Just seeing kind of what the what kind of what that movement is like in
Yeah,
the country, why it's kind of arisen in the first place, and also looking at sort of the limitations of it. Why can't a club like Everton be owned by the fans, where a club like a few tiers down can, and just seeing where they could go in the future. And post-punk football sort of picks that up after the fan-led review and see kind of what that meant for football and how much change would occur. And I think the answer was like very little in terms of fan ownership. It wasn't really touched on by that. But it's an interesting movement because it kind of
yeah.
came from nowhere. And we are one of the few countries that have kind of a spontaneous fan ownership movement. But there's definitely kind of a limitation, I guess, on what it can achieve.
Was Wimbledon the first one of those when they moved
The
to the
first, the
teams?
first like trust was Northampton Town.
Oh, okay.
They had like a tiny little trust, and they kind of invented there's a fellow there called Brian Lomax who invented the idea. But yeah, you're right. Wimbledon were ones who really sort of caught attention because they powered up
Yeah,
on league pyramid, and it kind of got back to close to where they were previously. And it was a great story, wasn't it, to be kind of, essentially fucked over by football, and for the fans to kind of unite and kind of get that club back. I'm surprised kind of not more is made of it because it is an amazing football
yeah.
story,
And
really.
it was nicely bookended, wasn't it, when they beat MK Dons in the league? It was like
Exactly.
full circle.
The evil club for, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. So the kids' book, if you know your history, what's the thinking behind that? Just something to interest young Toffees. I guess anyone can read it. It's going to be just accessible to anyone in it.
Yeah. Well, I've done everything you want to know about Everton, but afraid to ask. And that was
Yeah,
kind of miscellany. And I and then the idea of that was to really capture what Everton are, what Evertonian is, and kind of you can just dip into it and get a feel for the club. But I was conscious with my own son that kind of he'd hear names spoken about, like, Dean and Alan Ball, and you'd know them, but you wouldn't know like why they're revered, why they're loved, why you have those statues there. So the idea was to kind of to get like I guess kind of a shorter version of that book, take out the swearing, that kind of stuff, take out a bit
yeah,
of the hate, and just give if you why Everton are Everton and who these kind of big names are and why these matter, and also kind of just how good we have been. But I mean, I guess when you first encounter a club nowadays, you might think, well, Everton are a bit shit, aren't they? The kind of relegation battlers and that kind of stuff. I think that's a fine. It's good to remember that we've had European nights, we've had championships, we've had FA Cup finals, and we've also had some of the best players in the game play for us. So the
yeah,
idea is just a condensed version. They can just get it and read it, and hopefully realize that yes, we are shit at times, but actually there's more to us than just that.
yeah. It is. It's always the thing, isn't it? Like, I mean, for me, my dad passed it all on to me as well. So I grew up with names like Tiger McLaughlin and Di Davis, to be honest, when he was thinking back to his days in the 70s. Not names many people will remember, but it's all part of Everton's tapestry, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Right, we'll move on then to before we get into your choices this week. I just want to talk a little bit about the first game. Either you remembered or the first game you went to, or go on to both. Up to you.
Okay, well, kind of the same thing. I know
Yeah.
I've been before because my mom had told me I've been to like reserve games and I've been in there. When they used to let you in for the last 20 minutes when the gates opened.
Yes.
My
Yeah.
dad would take me in for that. So I've definitely been before. But the first game that kind of really like where I was going to the match and it was proper was Kendall's first game in charge, which was it 81, 82, Birmingham, I think it
Yeah, he
was.
joined in May 81, didn't he? And then so it
Yeah,
would have been.
so it was the one when he brought in like seven players, Magnificent Seven. Who I think only one of them ended up being Magnificent.
Yeah,
And I remember it just being like a fantastic day. I think it was like sunny and everyone was happy, which is unusual, I guess, for Everton. There was, I think, because of Kendall, there was optimism in the air. There were new players. They won, which is, even better. I think. I remember Alan Bailey scoring. I'm not sure who scored the rest of the goals. Do you remember the one with the mullet?
yeah,
Fantastic haircut. Um, yeah, I remember kind of, just thinking it was great that this was something I wanted to do more of. Although weirdly, it's not probably the best kind of introduction to Everton because like it was sunny, it was optimistic, like it was a great day. So, but I remember, yeah, come away from that just thinking like what an amazing way to spend a Saturday, just kind of magical, really.
yeah. I like having sort of started going myself back then. There was something different about it, wasn't there? At the time, like football at the time was nothing like it is now. I don't know if
No,
it's because we were kids, but it just felt different on the match day.
I think you're right. I mean, it's hard to divorce it from the fact that you are a kid and things are just more
Yeah,
kind of amazing. But like, there was something about just like, I guess, you just turned up, you just got a ticket, you just went in. If you were in the terrace and you could stand where you wanted to, like going in for the last 20 minutes was fantastic. As a kid, you just go there, get to the end of the game, be plonked on on one of the metal barriers, that kind of stuff. It was just, easy, I guess, as well. But there is always that sense of kind of wonder and magic when you're
yeah,
young that I just, I guess even football now, like for my son, there's still that kind of, he's nearly 16, but he still feels exciting going to Everton. There's no sense of dread in his stomach. He's still got that optimism, I guess. I'm sure that'll go in time, but
yeah.
it's,
It
it's
will. It will. It'll get beat out of him eventually. Like,
exactly, yeah, which is the dream, really. But
yeah,
it's right, yeah, yeah, I think when you're young, there's just something amazing about it.
yeah. Well, I did one of these with Gavin Buckland a while ago, and he was sort of saying about that thing whereby I think between the ages of 14 and 18 or 19, they're like your most formative years in terms of like music and football.
Yeah,
So like his favorite players are probably going to be from this team or these teams that he's seen over the last and the next couple of years.
but the
Slim
last
pickings, in it.
it's not rich pickings there, are
Not really, know, but
there? Um,
anyway, we move. We might get better. You never know.
Mhm.
Right, we'll go on to onto your choices then. So your first one kind of leads nicely into the season you were talking about, doesn't it? Your first choice for
Yeah,
your
so in
favorite
terms of
former player.
yeah, it's Peter Reid who was kind of those kind. I guess they were kind of formative years. So I'd have been sort of in the mid 80s. I would have been like 9, 10, 11, 12, that kind of stuff. When you're really falling in love with the sport and the club as
Yeah,
well. Obviously, that luckily for me, it kind of coincided with Everton's greatest period ever. And there was just something about Reid that I just loved. I can't really put a finger on what it was. Really, I mean, he certainly wasn't the best player in that team. But there was something like I think he felt like the most Everton player in that
yeah,
set. I thought he understood what it meant to play for the club. He did a lot of the ugly work that isn't always appreciated. I can recall wanting to even play like him. I mean, I wasn't that sort of player. Definitely wasn't kind of aggressive or that strong. But I'd try and be like Peter Reid. I'd try and look knackered and on shoulders and that kind of stuff, and didn't really work. But he was just kind of for that period. I thought he was. You look back now and you realize he was pivotal. I think
yeah,
along with Ray, he brought kind of experience, battle hardened experience to the team, to a young Everton team who were struggling kind of before they kind of stamped their character on that setup, I guess. But at the time, yeah, it was just that sense that he was. I loved how he played. I loved kind of the way he played, what he provided, the fact that he just always looked a bit shitty as well, which I was quite liking the player. And yeah, I think he was pivotal to that side. Maybe he doesn't always get the credit he deserved. There are certain names get mentioned more, but I think Reid was absolutely essential.
yeah. It feels like because he did that sort of dirty work. I mean, him and Paul Bracewell were just like the perfect two-man
Yeah,
midfield partnership.
yeah,
But yeah, he came in what December 81, I think. So I was looking back at the our league finishes before we started recording, and we finished 15th before Kendall joined, and then the season, like Kendall's first season, we finished 8th, which was a massive massive improvement. But I think, like as you said, in that summer he signed the Magnificent Seven, who, like, for anyone who doesn't know, Neville Southall was the only player who worked out. Who else was in there? Mickey Thomas was in there, wasn't he? Alan Haynes, was he?
Yeah.
There was a few names. Yeah,
Jim
just
Arnold?
like
Yeah.
would have been, and just names that you don't really, they're not synonymous with Everton at all. So for Peter Reid to come in after we've made 7 signings and stamp his authority straight away on that team, it just shows you the impact he had. And as you said, like Andy Gray often gets a lot of the credit for being that sort of pivotal, sort of older head in the team. I mean, Peter Reid was the same, and both players as well had come back, and they were like finished essentially when Everton signed them.
Yeah, gambles really. I mean, especially Gray, but I mean, Reid had like knee problems and issues, and it wasn't like a marquee signing, was it? So no. He's coming in, he's amazing. And it was kind of a punt, and they both could not have worked out. There's definitely kind of another Everton timeline where that those decisions don't go right, but for some reason it just seemed to gel at the right time. And I think when you talk to players of that era who played on that side, they both mention the fact that kind of their personalities, even when things weren't going well, their personalities sort of were having an effect on that young team, kind of rippling through the squad. I think without them, I don't think we'd have had the success. Despite those other fantastic players around, I think those two people were absolutely essential for what kind of happened, even though they weren't the best players in that squad.
Yeah. And I think, just speaking of the alternative Everton timeline, 85 Cup final, Peter Reid gets through and scores there, doesn't he? Still sick to be that.
Well, there's plenty of timelines where things are better, and lows where lows, it can be much worse as well.
Yeah, he's a great shout though. And again, he's just a great fella, isn't he? There's a lot of lads in that 85 team who just turned into just proper great sort of older fellas, and he's one of them, isn't he?
Likable. Again, you want that from a football team. You want kind of, you want players that you kind of connect with, I guess, and that entire setup, you just felt like they were all likable people that you wanted. You had like an emotional connection to.
Yeah, and all still good mates. If you see like some of the sort of after dinner stuff they do now, they still clearly all love each other.
Yeah, like I think you could tell that. I think most teams that are great, the players, there's a connection there, isn't there? I think that one is definitely the case.
Yeah, definitely good stuff. We'll move on to a not so great team, but the new season's upon us. You never know what could happen. So your favorite current player, a very, very popular choice as always.
Yeah, well, I think we've suffered from like a likability problem, haven't we, over the last few years? There's been a couple of players like Richarlison you've kind of loved, but actually when you compare, say, the Moshiri era to the Moyes era, I think there are a lot of players there that you just haven't connected to. And they've been okay, but like, I think you need something as a fan. You need something to buy into more than just ability. You want a player who you think gets team and gets what you want. And I think we're starting to get that now. I mean, I think that you can point to people like Tarkowski, Coleman's always been there. Even putting up Garner, James Garner, Banthwaite, who I think you've got that sense that there's a stronger affinity with the crowd. But the one who kind of has that, but has also been comfortably, I think, our best player is Pickford. I think it's I think you can say with hand on heart, I don't think we'd be a Premier League team without Jordan Pickford. I think he's, I know he had a ropey start to his Everton career, but I said the last 3 seasons he's barely put a foot wrong, and he's been the difference. And I don't understand kind of the disrespect he gets in the wider football world. It's it's obviously people don't watch Everton. That's clear. And you always get that quote where you say he's never let his country down. You think he's never, i.e. he's crap for this club, but actually Pickford, I don't really know how we've kept hold of him, to be honest.
Well, do you think, like you say, we need something to hang our hats on, and like we all do dearly love him. Do you think that's because we've got that much back from him and he's stuck with us? I mean, it's a big thing. He's never ever agitated for a move. But the big one for me, I think, was when United signed Onana that summer.
Yeah.
For me, they should have gone all out for Pickford, because the difference he would have made to that team is immeasurable. And his agent may well have been sort of nudging him that way. You don't know, but he never ever once has come out and said, "I want to join another club," and that would have been the ideal opportunity. And a lot of other players would, I think.
Yeah, I think he could have. He's definitely good enough to play at a higher level than Everton. No, yeah, I think that's a good point. That sense of loyalty, kind of maybe it feeds both ways. He's stayed, and we've kind of responded to that. He's definitely improved as a goalkeeper. He's matured.
Yeah,
He makes a big difference to the side. You get the sense now that he's gonna be an Everton keeper possibly until his powers fade. There's no reason at this stage now. Will he move on? Probably not. He seems very happy and settled. Um, so it's yeah, I think we could have lost him, and you wouldn't had he moved, you wouldn't have gone. Oh, that's ridiculous. That you would have gone. Yeah, I can see why.
yeah,
Uh, But he has stayed, and because of that, we are where we are because I
yeah,
think we'd be in the championship. I think now if it wasn't for him.
100%. And I think as well, one of the reasons he may have stayed is I don't think he gets this much now because Leighton Baines did the same, but a lot of players like look, the grass is a bit greener on the other side, but he supports Sunderland. He's a Sunderland lad, and profile wise, Everton and Sunderland, and sort of supporter base wise, the two very similar clubs, two very similar sets of fans. So he probably does just feel dead comfortable at Goodison, doesn't he? Going from Sunderland to
Yeah,
Everton, it was a step up, but in terms of sort of the size of the support base, it's probably relatively similar, I would imagine. So it seems a good
yeah.
fit.
Yeah, similar sort of fan base, both fans who've known kind of a lot of misery over the years and kind of
Yeah,
probably quite pessimistic, but they will love you if you kind of give them something to kind of latch on to. He's definitely loved. I think in some ways we were lucky he didn't start that well. I think 'cause if he'd been the player he is now when he first arrived, maybe you would have got a stupid offer
yeah,
that's hard to refuse. But actually, that maybe the first couple of seasons when he did occasionally make the occasional howler, and that seems to have stuck in a lot of people's memories. For some reason, pundits
yeah,
think Pickford then, rather than, there's a case he's at times the best keeper in the league. And
yeah.
yet, when
Easy.
you read things, when you listen to kind of pundits, that's never, ever kind of remotely given as the case. And yet, I don't understand it at all.
It's I think I think with the England thing, so everyone's sort of ignorant to Everton. I think with the England thing, people spent that long waiting for him to make a mistake that he didn't make that
Yeah,
they had to then turn around and say, "Oh well, he's never put a foot wrong for England." And
yeah.
then we're like, "Hang on a minute, it's like he does this every week for us."
Yeah. Don't you watch it? I mean, these people, they do watch Everton. Some of these
Yeah,
pundits are on, they're on Sky, and they've seen Pickford play. They've seen what a difference he makes. And it's like there's like a filter. There's a block, and they refuse to see the kind of the Premier League player he's become. Even though they accept that player can do it internationally, they seem to think there's some kind of disconnect, and there just isn't. And he will
yeah,
make mistakes, but what keeper does make mistakes?
exactly. Yeah,
It's a pressurized position. It does happen. But they are few and far between. And the rest of his game is so immense and so effective that he should be getting plaudits all the time rather than routinely dissed.
yeah, exactly. But you know what? So long as we love him, I don't care if anyone else
Yeah, and
does.
it helps
It's
us.
good for us.
Exactly. It's fine. If you don't want him, we'll have him. Fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is right. Yeah. Hope he stays with us forever. Never ever leave. We'll move on to your borrowed player now. So for anyone who's sort of not up to speed on this, I did used to do so the borrowed player was the favourite loan player. I quickly realised that we hadn't actually had that many loan players that people particularly liked. Manny Fernandez kept coming out all the time, which is a good
Yeah.
shout. So we just said, what player would you like have loved to have seen at Everton? And I think in terms of the profile of the player you picked and the time he would have been at Everton, he would have been absolutely perfect, wouldn't he?
Yeah, so it's Mario Gomez, who I think I'm looking more kind of his Bayern Munich time. I think he was like we've always had that tradition of big Everton number nines, who've been talismanic for the team. I know kind of Calvert-Lewin hopes to be kind of in that conversation, but I don't think he's necessarily there. He hasn't really done enough.
Yeah.
I think probably since Kevin Campbell, we've not really had that solid unit up top who can deliver, 18 and 20 goals and everything goes through them. And I think he would have been perfect for that. And I think I mean, there was never any conversation of him joining Everton, but at his peak, if he'd have come over to us, I think he would have made a massive difference. And I always liked him as a player, so much so that I'd always go Bayern or Germany when I was playing FIFA, just so I'd have Gomez to kind of play off because he had everything you want in a number nine. He was strong, he could finish, he was fantastic in the air. And I think, yeah, I don't think he would ever have joined Everton if you're playing for Bayern Munich.
Yeah.
You probably get him when he's like 38 and his powers have faded and that kind of stuff. Maybe
The
then, but
David Ginola side.
yeah, exactly. But at his peak, he would have been fantastic for us. I think he's kind of in some ways it's a bit like Fulkrug who's just going to West Ham.
Yeah.
Sort of big. I'd love Everton to have had the money to go and get someone like that. That kind of big German centre forward, but it really suited us.
Yeah.
And I think we've missed that. I think that's how we play. When we're at our
Yeah.
best, we have those sort of figures. And when you see Dom at his best, Everton are better.
Yeah.
I think that's what we
Well,
go.
no, I was just gonna say, well, if you look at Calvert-Lewin, like the sort of the perfect Everton goals that he scored are probably the one in the derby last season
Yeah,
and the one against Palace.
yeah,
We're quite easy to please in that respect. If you get a cross into the box and it gets headed in, we're
yeah,
sound. That's the best
yeah.
goal you can score.
We don't need silky football, do we? We don't
No.
need kind of intricate triangles and that kind of stuff. We just need the ball into the box and forward you can get on the end of it. And it's you know, I think we've not had that properly. I think
Yeah.
really because I mean I know Lukaku was a good. He wasn't that sort of forward, nor was he particularly loved, because he was always leaving.
It was a strange relationship, wasn't it?
Yeah, we sort of respected him, but didn't like him, I guess, because he was always buggering off, wasn't he,
Yeah.
in the press?
And
So
also he didn't play number 9 either. So you got
no,
Adi Kubu as well. He was number 22. So although they were cracking strikers, they never played number 9,
no.
weirdly.
You want that now on the back, and you want him to
Yeah.
play like like Lawton, like Dean, like Ferguson, those Latchford,
Yeah.
those sort of players, just strong. And for me, Gomez is one of the best of the past 20 years for doing exactly that.
And as you say, his Bayern Munich days were 2009 to 2013, which is sort of banging that David Moyes period where we absolutely needed a striker,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
yeah,
So it was it
yeah.
was kind of like he would have fitted in so nicely there.
Yeah, it made such a difference as well.
Yeah,
He could have been the difference,
he could have
really.
been. That's pretty much all it needed, wasn't it?
Yeah, just a goal. Just we need someone who can get you like 18, 20 goals a season and just bump you to the next level.
Yeah, yeah. Cracking shout that would have loved to have seen that. Moving on to Blue. So this is your favourite thing about Everton or your favourite Evertonian. We've had people say the fans, we've had people say Goodison Park. You're going with
I'm going with our sense of humor, our sense of pessimism, I think. So the sense of humor is, I don't think it's unique to Everton. There are plenty of fans that are similar to us, but we do have, I think, the quality of finding humor in quite a lot of bleakness, I think. I think it's, you're always looking for things that separate you from them across the park. And I think more than anything, it's that we can laugh at ourselves, and when you go on social media, you see things that Evertonians are funny, whereas Liverpool fans, there's no sense of humor when it
no.
comes to the club. They've got a Rizzler thin skin. They cannot laugh at themselves or anything. They just, if you make anything, it's just a trigger and they're aggressive and they're angry. Evertonians can take all sorts. So I think there's that. We are very funny. There's a gallows humor about being Evertonian, which I think you need to have because things do go wrong quite a lot. And that kind of sense of, it's almost like a supernatural sense of pessimism that we've got where it's so kind of deep that we can predict the future. So
Yeah.
So if a forward hasn't scored for like 40 games, we know he'll score against us. If a team's on a losing streak and they come to Goodison, we know that they're going to beat us. So it's kind of, we can predict outcomes based on our kind of massively impressive sense of pessimism, which I do think is probably unique in football. I think there's nobody quite like Evertonians for seeing kind of bleakness and kind of
Yeah.
future failure, I think.
I think I can only think of 2 clubs who we've actually got that power over. I'd say West Ham and Palace. They're probably 2 teams who look at us and think the same, but we've got that
Yeah,
with everyone else.
yeah,
So if as you
yeah.
say, if anyone's like not scored for a while, or who was that? Was it the player at Wolves who's only scored 2 goals in his career, about 6 years apart, and they were both against Everton?
Yeah. Yeah.
Things like that. There's just, and as you say, if we weren't like this, we'd be throwing ourselves in the mares, you think,
Yeah,
because
which is why you
it's
need
the
that
only way
sense
to
of
get through.
exactly. And I think if you want to kind of, if one game you're going to capture why we are the way we are and why you need a sense of humor, it's that game when we played Newcastle a few seasons ago under Ancelotti and we're 2-0 up with 2 minutes to go. And you're thinking, most that was like Liverpool fan, they'd be thinking, oh, there's no chance you can, but when you've gone through that,
Yeah,
that's what can happen to your club. And also last season when like almost everything that could go wrong did go wrong, but we just knew that would happen.
yeah. I mean, I think last season's a little bit too close to sort of really um sort of think about too deeply. But I think in a few years' time, we'll look back at last season and be like, that was actually really crazy. Because like you said,
Amazing.
anything that could have gone wrong did go
Yeah.
wrong. 2 punch
It's
reductions, the lot. Just
yeah.
mental.
When you think of like from the first punch deduction until probably like the end of the season, you think of the level of anxiety that you would
Yeah,
feel routinely, and it wasn't like it was just related to sat. It would be constant. And there's no escape from it. And
no,
every time the club thought you got free, uh, you would kind of pull back down again. You had no idea where you're going to finish, what you're going to be punished, if there'd be additional punishments. You got that massive long winless streak. You got some of
yeah.
the worst football I've ever seen Everton team, which is saying something. Um, yeah, I think you're right. I don't think it's sunk in. You know it's weird, and you know it's kind of a mental season, but actually kind of the scale of it,
Yeah.
and the fact that we escaped and then comfortably, not even like our last, like comfortably.
Well, it was like technically safe from January in the end. I think something stupid like that, wasn't
Maybe.
it? I think the way the points went, I
Yeah.
think we were pretty much safe from January because the teams below us just didn't pick up enough points.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think we were lucky with me. There was some terrible teams in that
Yeah.
league season. And even like Luton, who you thought were on our heels, but they're actually crap, weren't
I
they?
mean, technically we should have been relegated anyway, just for getting beat by Luton twice in one season. In fact,
That's true.
not even
Yeah.
beating them once.
Yeah.
So,
No.
you
And
know,
I mean, they were awful. I
oh, they
was
were
I
bad.
was at West Ham the moment they got relegated, and you think they're fighting for their lives. They were just shit.
Yeah,
Really shit team. But yeah, I think that's absolutely right. It was an astonishing season that you wouldn't want to live through it again now, would you?
no. And,
That,
and the weird quirk of that season is, like, points deductions aside, as you say, we also got thrown that curveball of the worst winless run, like even beating Mike Walker's. So Mike
which
Walker
is
can't even use it as the
amazing.
benchmark anymore.
Yeah, I mean I thought that could not be beaten. I can
No,
you can recall the Walker era and the football that was produced, and it was horrific,
yeah,
and there was like you just thought you were plummeting. But you thought the only good thing to come from that was at least we've got a bottom. That's kind of nothing can be worse than Walker.
that was always the case, wasn't it?
Yeah, and now you're thinking, wow, how was that being beaten? That's incredible. Yeah, and yet still survived. Walker form, well, sub-Walker form,
Yeah,
introductions, kind of confidence eviscerated, and yet here we are, looking forward to. Well, not looking forward, but there's another season coming.
yeah.
It's
Do you know what? I mean, I should know better, but I am quite looking forward to the season starting. I
oh,
know
it's
we've
that.
got big holes in the squad, but I was at Preston on Saturday and it was quite nice. It was a good day out.
This is that weird time, isn't it, where all things are possible, where you kind
Yeah,
of it is that sense of sunny summer optimism, and then they'll kick off. Like it'd be 3 o'clock on the 17th, and you'll suddenly think, oh shit, maybe Everton are crap.
yeah. We're back to opening day, 1981-82 against Birmingham.
Yeah, exactly.
Which brings it nicely full circle. Just want to talk us through any of your books before we go.
No, maybe you covered the books. That's great. I mean, the kids'
Anything
book
else
just,
you're doing?
just come out. So like that's if anyone wants to buy that, keep me in biscuits. That's fantastic.
What
Yeah.
was that again? Sorry.
If the kids' book has just come
Oh, the
out.
kids'
So
book. Yeah,
yeah, so if it's I don't know how it's gone down so far, but if it's there'll be you can get it via Amazon, and there'll be some copies in St. Luke's as well.
good stuff. Swear Amazon, get them from St. Luke's.
Yeah, probably.
Sounds good to me. Nice
It's
one.
more wholesome. Yeah.
Cheers for that, Jim. Really
No
appreciate your
worries.
time.
Good stuff.
That was this week's Old New Borrow Blue. Thanks for listening. If you do want to get involved in the show, send me a direct message on Twitter at LesRobert77 or at the Blue Room AFC. That's been Old New Borrow Blue. Thanks to Jim. We'll catch you next time.